Guys, today I'm really excited because I finally have the Vivo X200 Ultra with me, which is arguably the best camera smartphone in the world. Why do I say that? Because Vivo has cleverly used a combination of hardware and software to produce results that look very impressive. But the question really is it actually more impressive than the OPPO Find X8 Ultra and the iPhone 16 Pro Max, a phone that Vivo themselves compared at the launch event? I'll give you the answer to that question by the end of this video. If you're watching me for the first time, I'm Ershad. This is Track and Tech English, your destination for detailed, incisive gadget reviews. Now I must talk about the Vivo X200 Ultra's camera setup first. It uses the same Sony Lytia 818 sensor, the 50MP sensor that was used even in the X200 Pro. But Vivo has made this very important change where it has switched out the 23mm, 24mm standard wide lens that you get on most phones for a 35mm lens. Plus there's gimbal OIS stabilization on top of it. Trust me, this is every camera nerd's wet dream come true, because the amount of times I've heard people tell me, oh, why don't smartphone manufacturers use 35mm lenses? Well, Vivo's done it. Now, to add to that camera setup, Vivo has also used the same Sony Lytia 818 sensor for the ultra-wide angle camera, with which Vivo actually does a 2x in-sensor crop to get a 28mm lens, so that you don't miss out on that wide frame either. There's also that 200MP Samsung HP9 sensor with 85mm attached lens. Now, here's some interesting math for you. With the X200 Pro, you get the same sensor for the telephoto camera or the periscope camera. And attached to that periscope camera is also an 85mm lens. But when you do the calculation with the primary camera, which is a 23mm lens camera on the Vivo X200 Pro, you actually get a magnification of 3.7x. At the same time, when you look at the X200 Ultra, it's a magnification of 2.5x. That's not it. You also get a 50MP selfie camera. There's a dedicated camera control button, obviously. And there are two dedicated chips, like apart from the Snapdragon 8 Elite that's inside and the ISP that it uses, specifically for imaging, which is basically the VS1 chip and the V3 Plus chip. The VS1 chip will be used for raw data processing and the V3 Plus will be used for algorithm tuning. Now this is a completely mad setup. And when you add that camera kit and that teleprompter lens, that Zeiss made lens, which actually increases the magnification to 8.7x, it's insane, honestly. Unfortunately, I don't have the teleprompter lens, so I didn't test that out. But anyway, here's a handy comparison chart for you to see all the camera specs of all the three phones that I'm going to be comparing. And finally, let's just jump to the pictures. Now, to start off, we'll look at the photos taken by the primary camera on all the three phones at their default focal lengths. So the iPhone has a 24mm lens, OPPO has 23mm and Vivo has 35mm. And Vivo's 35mm lens actually works wonders because you get excellent detail retention at 100% crop despite having a smaller sensor than OPPO's 1-inch sensor. Vivo has a 1x1.28-inch sensor. And when you compare the 24MP outputs of OPPO and iPhone, which is basically what both these phones can do, OPPO actually offers more details and sharper textures thanks to the larger sensor. Now when you switch to the 35mm on iPhone and OPPO, they're not nearly as good as Vivo, and between the OPPO and iPhone, actually the iPhone is better here. Vivo would be number one when it comes to detail retention for me, followed by OPPO and then Apple. Alright, now switching to low light, all the three are fantastic here, but iPhone's color rendition is spot on. Whether it's the greens or the night sky, they look accurate here. But when it comes to detail retention at 100% crop, both the Find X8 Ultra and the Vivo X200 Pro are kind of toe-to-toe. iPhone's is the softest and weakest here. So with that 1x1.28-inch sensor on the X200 Ultra, along with the 35mm lens that it's using, the kind of details that you are getting is actually something that I didn't expect. It could also be because it's got those dedicated chips for processing as well. Whatever it is, Vivo's doing a fantastic job. And when you look at the ultra low light scenes like this one, Vivo just decimates the competition here. The noise correction and detail retention is top notch. OPPO struggles generally in such scenes, and in comparison, iPhone is actually not bad, but it's a little too noisy. So overall, when you look at it, Vivo's the best even for low light, and Apple and OPPO would be matched here. Alright, now time to talk about those ultra wide angle shots because there are some interesting things to note here as well. Firstly, the iPhone is the worst of the lot. Unlike the primary camera, you do not get 24MP outputs from the ultra wide angle camera on the iPhone, unfortunately. But OPPO gives you proper 24MP outputs from the ultra wide as well. And this means that the detail retention at 100% crop is insane. Now, when you match the crop on OPPO and Vivo, despite Vivo having a large sensor, OPPO is actually better here because Vivo's algorithm over sharpens the ultra wide pictures a lot, and that is clearly visible from the micro details. Having said that, that new ultra wide angle sensor on the X200 Ultra is absolutely kick-ass in low light ultra wide shots. It pulls in the most amount of details, obviously, and the second best is OPPO here. Alright, now time to compare the zoom shots using the periscope and the telephoto cameras on these phones basically, but I'm going to switch things around a little bit. What I'm going to do is actually going to compare the focal length equivalent to a full frame just to maintain my sanity, and I'll tell you why. Because if I were to do a 2x, 3x, 5x, 10x, 30x comparison, then it would have been difficult for me to explain and for you to understand. Because for example, the 2x on the iPhone is 48mm and the 2x on the OPPO is 46mm, which is comparable. But the 2x on the Vivo is 70mm. So you see the kind of problem that's there? Please like, share and subscribe for the amount of effort that I've put into the math of doing this. Now starting off with the 70mm comparison, OPPO leads the pack once again because of the fact that it actually has 24 megapixel outputs. You get the most amount of details with the Find X8 Ultra, and the 2x in-sensor crop, which goes to about 70mm on the X200 Ultra, is the second best here, and then it's followed by the iPhone, which is the worst of the three. At 85mm, Vivo's dedicated 200 megapixel Samsung HP9 sensor is the most detailed, followed by OPPO and then the iPhone. At 120mm or 5x on the iPhone, I expected the iPhone to have an easy victory because of the dedicated lens. But well, Vivo beats in fair and square thanks to that AI sharpening that it's doing. In fact, it even beats the OPPO here. Next, we move on to 135mm or the 6x dedicated lens on OPPO. Here, I realized Vivo's flaw with the AI upscaling of the image. The sharpening is a little overdone and OPPO looks more realistic here, but still even Vivo's photo will look very good to an untrained eye, so basically both are almost equally good. Now next, let's take a look at the 668mm range. At these long zoom ranges, the AI starts going into overdrive on the OPPO and Vivo. It looks overprocessed from the get-go, but the processing offers better sharpening on OPPO since it doesn't haze out the details like Vivo does. Obviously the iPhone is no match here, so I'm not even talking about it, but the digital zoom kinda looks natural here. Now at even further zoom ranges, like for example the 1335mm that you see over here, I don't know. It's right now boiling down to what kind of AI processing you prefer. You prefer Vivo's processing or OPPO's processing here. Both actually don't recreate the scene very authentically. I feel like Xiaomi 15 Ultra actually does a better job. Alright, now moving on to low light zoom, at 70mm, OPPO is the best, followed by Vivo and then iPhone. At 85mm, while Vivo does have an edge here, OPPO is nearly as good. I'd say 99% there, and that is a huge win for low light zoom on the Find X8 Ultra. At 120mm, Vivo takes the win again, followed by OPPO and then Apple. At 135mm, OPPO's 6x comes in clutch and it takes a win once again. In my opinion, after looking at the photos, I'd probably go with OPPO here for zoom performance, Vivo following it very closely in second position, and iPhone like somewhere there. Now obviously I haven't tested the teleconverter zoom lens that you can attach to the Vivo X200 Ultra. If you were to do that, then you will definitely get way better zoom pictures with the X200 Ultra. I'd love to do that sometime. Now moving on to HDR processing, I felt like Vivo's multi-stack processing is superior. While all three look good at first glance, only when you look at the 100% crop do the cracks start developing. Especially with the iPhone, you can see that it tends to blow out the brightest portions in the image, and when there's a tree in the front with the harsh backlighting, you can notice some chromatic aberration as well. I saw some purple fringing. OPPO is almost as good as Vivo except for the shadow region where Vivo pulls out more details. And the same analysis is true for HDR samples that I captured with the ultrawide angle camera, as you can see for yourself. And when you're capturing people against harsh backlight, the iPhone just falters really badly. Now a lot of people will have a tendency to say that, hey, this is probably what it looks like, this is very natural looking. Actually, it's not. What I saw was much better and it was very well reproduced by Vivo and OPPO. In fact, Vivo and OPPO's HDR algorithm seems to be much better here, with me preferring Vivo slightly better, but that's again 19 piece ka farak. But the thing to note here is that Apple's smart HDR algorithm at one point used to be one of the best in the industry, right now is lagging behind the Chinese counterparts when it comes to HDR multi-stack processing. Now talking about color reproduction, it is the closest to accurate or closest to neutral on Vivo with the Zeiss tuning. And truth be told, unless you peek intently, you can't find the difference between the iPhone and Vivo. They look rather similar. The difference is that the iPhone is a touch warmer to make it look slightly more attractive, but yeah, very good color reproduction here. The same is true for skin tones as well, by the way. OPPO messes it up entirely in the skin tone rendition, while Vivo is close to neutral. iPhone actually kind of wins here if you ask me. Now I captured portraits at 35mm, 50mm, 85mm and 135mm on the Vivo and OPPO and 120mm on the iPhone. While all three are pretty good at creating that beautiful bokeh drop-off that tries to mimic a DSLR, Vivo's edge detection is so freaking good that I was shocked that it managed to pull out a single strand of hair in the semantic segmentation. Vivo's just killing it. Skin tones are again closest to natural on the iPhone, followed by Vivo and then OPPO. In low light portraits, Vivo just decimates the competition. It is incredible. I'll just show you the 85mm portrait comparison here. You get the most amount of details, the best edge cutout with each individual strand of hair picked out, and just an incredible portrait quality overall, of course with the best exposure and beautiful colors as well. As far as selfies go, all three are absolutely top class. iPhone has again the best skin tones here. iPhone does a good job with skin tones, trust me. Vivo and OPPO are a touch warm, but these two do pull out more details than the iPhone, let that be known. HDR selfies are the best on the iPhone here, and when you look at low light selfies, OPPO is the best, followed by Vivo and then iPhone. Actually, that's also true for selfie portraits. So overall, when you look at it, the Find X8 Ultra actually has a little bit of an edge when you look at the selfie pictures compared to iPhone and the X200 Ultra. Alright, now I'm going to be talking about video recording next. And for that, let me make one thing abundantly clear is the fact that I'm going to be showing you SDR video comparison first. And after that, I'll talk about Dolby Vision, and there's a reason for it. Now, all three are fantastic at 4K 60fps using the primary camera, although in daylight, I feel like Vivo has a slight edge here, simply because you get a higher bitrate video recording and better gimbal stabilization. Sound recording is the best on OPPO, followed by Vivo and then the iPhone. I never thought I'd see this day where iPhone would actually face tough competition from the Chinese counterparts.
Alright, so now we're recording a video at 4K 60fps using the primary camera on all the three phones. Unfortunately, the X200 Ultra's crop is a 35mm crop, so it's a close crop. Whereas you get a wider frame on the other two. Now this is an SDR video, this is not a Dolby Vision video.
In low light video recording, all the three are again so good. Vivo does have some noise, but it does offer more details compared to the iPhone. OPPO is the most detailed and sharpest of the three in low light video, but the lens flare correction in Vivo is just top class. Ultrawide video recording quality is the best on Vivo, followed by OPPO and then the iPhone. By the way, Vivo has also done a good job of, smoothing out the jankiness that you would get when you're zooming into an image and the lens switching would happen. Yeah, it's done a good job of it. It's much cleaner with the zoom now, but still iPhone is the king here. OPPO is just very janky. Also, the zoom video quality is not very good on OPPO. Vivo is just mad good here, and iPhone really holds up its own next to Vivo here. Vivo selfie video recording is also the best in SDR because it shoots higher bitrate video, offers more details, and the sound recording is fantastic. OPPO would be my second pick, followed by the iPhone.
This is a 4K 60fps SDR video recording using the selfie camera. Now this is a 4K 60fps SDR video recording. Now this is a 4K 60fps SDR video recording on the Vivo X200 Ultra.
Now, while Vivo has caught up to the iPhone in most aspects, the iPhone is still a more complete video camera. The 4K 120fps comparison that we did, in that the quality is absolutely nuts. Look at the bitrate difference between the three. Also, now it's time to talk about the Dolby Vision video recording, and iPhone again beats the other two here because the Dolby Vision gradation is absolutely insane. Now, I'm not going to be showing any footage and you'll be seeing my face right now, primarily because our editing workflow is not in HDR, it's in SDR. In fact, we do it at 4K 30fps, and I hear that a lot of people want 60fps as well. We'll think about it. But what I'll do is I will put a G Drive link with all my Dolby Vision video samples for you guys to check it on a Dolby Vision enabled display, because that is when you'll be able to see the difference, or even an HDR display for that matter. Without that, you won't be able to tell the difference. And finally, all three can of course do cinematic or portrait video, but the quality is the best on the iPhone, followed by Vivo and then OPPO. Unfortunately, OPPO cannot do 4K 30fps cinematic video recording. It can only do 1080p 30fps. Now, for the final part of the comparison, I'm not going into each feature list and mode because Vivo clearly wins that one. But since all the three have a camera control button, started off by the iPhone, I compared the three. So clearly Vivo is the best at camera control as well, because you get a half shutter option like you have on professional cameras. Plus the mode changing and the zooming also feels pretty smooth. OPPO comes in a very close second, and iPhone is still not my favorite, and I don't use it much. But I must tell you this, the camera control button at the position that it's in on all the three phones, it definitely distracts you while you're shooting because it will get pressed inadvertently, 100%. Alright, now after using the Vivo X200 Ultra and testing it against these fantastic phones out here, I can safely say this without offending anyone, that the Vivo X200 Ultra probably has to be the best camera smartphone in the world right now. In 2025 at the moment. Maybe some other phone might come in the future which could beat it. The iPhone 17 Pro Max? Do you think that'll happen? And well, the OPPO Find X8 Ultra actually comes in a very close second. I like the kind of pictures that the Find X8 Ultra actually captures, considering the fact that it does 24 megapixel outputs from the primary, the ultrawide, and the telephoto. Very clever move. And apart from that, you also do get very good selfie performance, and zoom performance is also something that I prefer on the OPPO over Vivo if you don't bring the teleconverter into the equation. As for the iPhone, well, it's the iPhone. It's not the best camera phone in the world right now anymore. It might be the most popular one, but there are better camera phones in the market, and I feel like Apple is playing it a little too safe right now. Alright, so that was my deep dive camera review and comparison of the X200 Ultra against these three phones. What did you guys think of it? Which one was your favorite? Let me know in the comment section. And do you agree with my opinion or not? Do you really think that the X200 Ultra has to be the best camera smartphone in the world right now? Let me know in the comments. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, keep tracking and stay safe.